Well, this is a story that I've decided doesn't have an ending. So it does have a beginning. I'm going to start it with my mother telling me that the most important thing in life was to find my passion, which, to be honest, just spiraled me into years and years of anxiety and shame and guilt and fear and insecurity about not knowing what it was or where I was going to find it. And as I was looking for it, I started to see cracks in the narrative that I was being told. That was I really going to find some kind of sense of fulfillment? Was there actually like a success moment where I would stop being racked with anxiety and depression? And was I actually earning all of the opportunities that I was getting? Were all these doors being opened for me because of a set of privileges and structural privileges that I didn't earn? So as I started looking at those cracks, around then is when I found grass. What I mean by that is that I found regenerative, intensive, rotational, intentional grazing systems. And I learned as much as I could about how the grass and the soil below the grass can be used to sequester carbon. And I love ruminants. I learned as much as I could about the biology behind ruminants. I got my first 2 sheep, Bala and Hekla, I think 8 years ago now, and I've since grown my flock to sometimes over 100 sheep. I grazed those sheep on other people's land and essentially on occupied Pomo land here in Mendocino. And what that actually looks like is that I carry these big rolls of electric fencing, sort of portable, mobile electric fencing all across the California hills to move my sheep every day onto new pasture, new feed. And so my relationship for a long time was that grass is feed for my animals. And living in California and growing up in California too, I recognized that grass is another thing. It's also a fuel source. And that's the next dimension of grass that I decided to get engaged with. I joined the fire department. And so this is where my story within my story starts. It started last Labor Day, September 7th, 2020. And I'm carrying these rolls of fencing up the backside of this pond and moving my sheep. And my pager goes off. So it's like this loud beep, 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 beep. And I drop the rolls of fencing. We're being toned out for a structure fire north of town, structure into the veg. And I traded out my rolls of fencing for a backpack full of rolls of hose. And we rushed to this fire, not knowing at the time that I was about to spend the next 18 days on the fire line. And so what that actually means is that we spend 24 hours a day, we spend 24 hours fighting the fire and then 24 hours kind of resting. But you can imagine that that kind of schedule is a little bit weird and makes you crazy. And the 24 on is so intense and just, it's so full that it's really hard to rest on the 24 off. And my mind started going to all these interesting places and windows were kind of opening for me as I recognized that these 2 male-dominated worlds that I'm a part of, with ranching and with firefighting, it's not just that I was surrounded by dudes, sure that it is true, but really the culture around the whole thing started revealing itself to me, especially in the language that was being used. So that first day we go to respond to the Oak Fire, we're on initial attack. It's this like very controlling, dominating, we've got to defeat this fire. It's us versus the fire. And I've been spending years trying to deprogram myself from the kind of competitive mindset that exists there. So the next step, we get transferred to the August complex, which is the largest fire in California history. And why are we having these mega fires, I'm thinking? And I'm recognizing during the Oak Fire, we're crashing through thick understory, thick manzanita coyote brush. And I'm thinking about the Pomo and the management of that land before us, thinking about the relationship and how different that was from this, like, we've got tankers overhead and we're fighting this war against a mega fire, where the relationship used to be with these small management fires, not in September, but in a different time of year when it wouldn't turn into this big mega fire. And on this August fire, one night, after a day of like seeing 200-foot fire tornadoes rise off of these hillsides and, lighting backfires, it's so intense. And I'm thinking about my sheep at home. And I'm thinking about the community that has rallied around me to take care of my sheep in order for me to go and fight this fire. And I'm recognizing the column of smoke that's rising from this million-acre fire is laying over the sky. It darks out the sun, and there's reports at 3 p.m. of coyotes howling. And they're not supposed to be awake at 3 p.m. So it's, everyone's a little bit uneasy. And I'm thinking about the relationship that, a conventional rancher should have to coyote control. And hearing coyotes at 3 p.m., I should be getting my rifle and heading out to take care of that. And that's not the relationship that I've decided to form with the wildlife that lives here. It's this kind of colonizer attitude and mentality that I'm really working hard to move against. And I'm trying to carve out space for myself in a different form of relationship to fire and to ranching. And I'm recognizing that this could have been the end of my story. And for a while, I thought this was the end of my story. I'm a woman and I can be in these fields and we can have different relationships with the work that we do. And I recognize now that that's not the end of the story. And the end of the story is much more complicated, that the access that I've had to these opportunities aren't existent for a lot of people. And not just because of the structural privilege that I've had, but because of the language that we're really using. And the language that we use to describe our relationship with fire, with the land, with the wildlife, with our livestock, that language is preventing access to a lot of people. We talked about that reciprocal attitude, and that I think is so lacking in those fields. So my passion has shifted. My passion for fire and grass and sheep is shifting now to figuring out where is power held and how do we redistribute it. And fortunately, the grass regrows every single year here. It provides more feed and it also provides more fuel, but it also gives us an opportunity to try again every single year. And that's where I'm going. Thank